Natural Solutions with Dr. J, your source for time-tested and cutting-edge natural medicine approaches to optimize your health. With your host, Dr. J. Sordean.
So this is Natural Solutions with Dr. J, and I'm so pleased to have the second opportunity to interview Andrew Phillips on this on this podcast. And Andrew is like a really amazing person. He his background as far as business, what we're talking about here, he spent his career in marketing. And the last 10 years, he's been running an agency that delivers digital marketing services to some of the world's biggest brands. And he's also working with smaller entrepreneurs now because of the COVID shelter-in-place changes that have occurred over the past several months. And so he is the founder of the Digital Marketing Codex. And so, as I said, he has been working with entrepreneurs as well, not just large businesses, but smaller businesses and entrepreneurs, to help them get leads and to generate more business online. I want to thank you for being here. And one of the first questions I have, though, because this is a health-related, we have a focus on health and natural solutions with Dr. J. But so how did you get started in doing this kind of work in advertising and things of that nature?
Hi, Dr. J. Great to be here.
Yes.
And thanks for inviting me on your show. You know, it's a great privilege to be here.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, in answer to your question, I guess I guess you fall in love with things, and I fell in love with marketing. And when I was 15, my school sent me out to have a bit of experience. You know, and they call that works experience. And my job was in the advertising department of the local newspaper.
Oh, interesting.
And it was great because I was tasked with there was a local fishing shop, you know, where fishermen would come in and buy bait and buy tackle. And my job was to generate advertising, inquiries by creating a nice advert.
Oh, interesting.
And it's just amazing. And I went through, the early parts of my career working in the hotel business I qualified as a hotel manager. But I quickly realized what I really loved was the communication with people.
All right, yeah. So you did some advertising for fishing, and was that pretty successful even at age 15?
Well, they booked again the next week and the next week.
Wow, there you go.
That was something. That was something.
And that's pretty exciting when you have that kind of success, and they go, "Oh, we want you to keep being here." It says something really important. Nice. And Absolutely. Then you were working for the local newspaper, and then you branched out. You had your own publishing company as well, I seem to recall.
Yeah, that's right. So, when I decided that what I really liked was communication, I decided to spend 2 weeks in a publishing house to understand that, and I was tasked with jumping on the phone and talking to people about, possibly advertising in the sort of national magazines. And that seemed to go down really well, and I ended up being there for 5 years, and then I set up my own business. I set up my own shop doing the same thing.
I see. Now, these were not the tabloids.
Oh, absolutely not. This is coffee top table, 200-page glossy magazines.
They had products in them, or?
Really, the speciality was sport. So we worked with the PGA. For golf and the Formula One for Association for Formula One.
Wow.
I actually was very lucky enough to bring Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson for an All-Stars NBA sanctioned event in London.
Wow.
For one of those gigs, which is and I can tell you it was an amazing experience, and I had a stiff neck by the end of the night because they were like this tall.
Were they that big? Yeah.
They were just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
So did you meet them like at the airport and things like that?
No, our company did that, but I met them at the event, and they did the hospitality with our customers for us. They did the sort of meeting and greeting and all that. Then they put on a show, and that was just sensational. And yeah.
Oh, because you mean when they were playing the basketball, it was that kind of show?
Yeah, it was an event, a basketball event. So
Right.
it was like a showcase, bit of fun. They were standing, throwing the basketball behind them, and scoring
Yeah.
from the halfway line, things like that. Yeah.
Wow. How exciting. Do you still keep in touch with them?
No, I was never that high up in at that time, because that was before I had my own company. That was just before that. I was never that level that I had that privilege. But in the moment, it was something I remember.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I don't have that type of experience that I could claim in my career. So you had the publishing company, and I know that we had talked before, and I've been in a number of different like leadership programs where in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we would have each month we would have a new section of culture or society come in and business and talk about what was going on. And so they had one that was on publishing. And so even then, that was probably 12 years ago, there was already this huge decline of print because it's there used to be print everywhere. I mean, there's like the Onion. I used to love picking that up do you know the Onion?
I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, it's this outrageously funny comedian like this newspaper that just makes fun of everything. And I first saw it in New York City, and it was just in the free boxes on the street. And then gradually it got less and less, and all the newspapers, very few. I think the New York Times still maybe prints a Sunday edition that gets distributed, but almost all newspapers have gone to digital now. And so that happened also with your company, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, we were very successful. We had a very good innings. We were there for like 6-7 years, and we did really well. And then it hit us very quickly. It is really a seismic shift when digital came in, and I didn't know much about digital. So I decided to learn what I could about digital, and I actually ended up studying with Stanford University. And that was amazing. That was just
you came to Stanford?
Well, I did afterwards. I did the course online initially, and then I came afterwards to meet some of my mentors. And it was just the most amazing experience to enjoy that Silicon Valley vibe. And yeah, it was just great. And then to actually then come along and go to Stanford afterwards and to enjoy the whole area. Whole Bay Area is just amazing, and I forged bonds and friendships there as a result of that, which I maintain to this day, and it's just fantastic. What a great experience! It was very humbling to be part of that, and yeah, really a great experience.
I'm sure you contributed a great deal also with your background in marketing and because I think you've said that so many things still transfer over from the old headline kind of how to create hooks and how to, in just a few short words, how do you grab people's attention? Would you say that people's attention span has decreased over the years?
Absolutely. I think we've all officially got attention deficit disorder now. We're bombarded. I think there's some stat that we get about 3,000 advertising messages per day per person.
Wow.
And so we're very quickly filtering these messages out. It was 9 seconds, then 8, then 6. But what I work on and what our agency has been working on is on the basis of 4 seconds.
Interesting. So that's like you're just cutting it in half just in case you have less than.
Well, actually, I mean, YouTube did that for us. So when when you got that advert that will just jump in, it just jumps on before you watch a YouTube clip, and there's two types, skippable and unskippable. and the skippable is after 5 seconds.
Oh, yes, right. In the
Yeah,
digital ones.
yeah, and by
Yeah.
4 seconds you've made up your mind. That's for sure.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I try to most of them I skip, but sometimes I'll actually watch them and I'm going, why is this on here? Oh, this is an ad.
Exactly, and slowly but surely, over like 2 or 3 seconds, you've moved your mouse to where that skip ad appears, and you're
Right.
just waiting for it to appear so you can press it.
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a bad ad.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something that in your professional work, do you like have the what's it called, a hot screen, or it's like a, where it shows which
Heat
areas of
map.
the screen, heat map. Yeah. Is that something that you also use in some of the work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So since Stanford, I formed a digital agency, and part of the work that we've been doing for the last 10 years for big brands is actually looking at consumer behavior online, and the science behind that. Part of the science, as you rightly point out, is the heat mapping.
Hmm.
Which does give us like really good insights, and especially on our user interface. So we get a sense of when these people see a page, are they really engaging with that page? Is it working? And if some pages aren't working and some aren't, and some are, some
Yeah.
better than others, then we can get a sense of that with those heat maps and with lots of other tools as well. But
And
it does help.
so there's also heat maps that will track where people's eyes go. Is
Yep.
that true? Yeah.
Well, that is actually true. Basically,
Yeah.
what that works in testing.
Oh.
So in testing facilities, people will agree to come in and that can work. That is a system that does work. It is used in testing.
Huh.
But
Interesting.
when we're working with people, when we've already got sites out there or apps, we're working on where they've actually visited, where their mouse has scrolled.
I see where they scroll to and where their mouse goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sophisticated. It's so, like the whole marketing arena is so sophisticated now. I think many people have no clue how sophisticated it really is.
We provide, up until COVID-19, we've been providing an all services agency, and it's fair to say that I personally can't be an expert in every single area.
Right.
It really has become each area is a speciality. And you know enough to run the agency, enough to know what that particular job does, and you
Right.
can do it if I roll up my sleeves. But really, from the guys who are doing it every day, 6-7 hours a day,
Wow.
yeah.
So prior to COVID-19, you had an agency that was like 20 people, and it was a particular office space and that type of thing too, right?
Yeah, that's right. We had offices, but which were actually located, within a bridge walk from our biggest client.
Oh, all
We
right.
sort of, we moved there because it was an optimization, and that's very helpful. But we had studios across town, in a cheaper area.
Uh-huh.
And those studios were considerable size studios, and we had a team of 24 people in there at any one time. And those studios were creating content. And, and so we had the videographers were in there, the shoots, the sets, the whole thing. And we got locked down, we got shut out,
Wow.
with COVID-19. That was the end of that.
And so at that time, you mentioned, I think before, you're working these really long hours, a typical corporate kind of structure where you just go, and that had some health effects.
Absolutely. With global clients, you very often got what we call touch points, is when the client wants to speak to us, and we'll have multiple touch points per project, per country market. So, we'd finish up, 7 o'clock in the evening, and then, US country market would be knocking at our door with a barrage of emails when they finish up, which is our time, 10 o'clock. in the evening.
All
And
right.
then it would be Canada, because Canada would then finish, a couple of hours later on the West
Ah,
Coast. Yeah. And then I actually had a team in Malaysia who were able to, because of the exact opposite time zone difference, were able to deliver stuff overnight, so
all
we
right.
could have to the client the next day. And by the time I dealt with Malaysia, it was almost time to wake up again to start the London office.
Wow. Wow. So you got like 1 hour of sleep and a few hours of napping or something?
That would be more like the luxury of the weekend. Yeah. I mean,
So
it
that
wasn't as bad as that, but pretty close.
so that had an impact on you, and it stressed you, and you had some symptoms or something that led you to.
Yeah, I tell you about that, Dr. J, was that, and this is why I feel so lucky. And this is, no, I'm so happy that, I had, I went to hospital, to A&E one day, because I'd been ill for a day. I couldn't,
A&E is like emergency and acute care or something?
that's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
All
Yeah. And I couldn't balance, and I was feeling seasick even when I was sitting down.
right. Ew.
And, yeah, I was told that I had vertigo. And they said, "Oh, have you had a cold recently?" And that type of thing. They led to the vertigo. But then the attending doctor, basically, she saved my life, because she said, "Have you got any other symptoms?" And every day for about a year, for the last year at that point,
Uh-huh.
I'd been, when I got out of my house in the morning, I'd walk 30 seconds down the road to head for the train, and I'd have to stop because my chest was really, really hurting and short of breath. And I thought I was just like unfit,
Right.
as you do. But then the attending doctor at the A&E, I mentioned those symptoms. She sent me for an ECG, the ESG.
EKG or
They put the
ECG? Yeah,
wires
yeah. Uh-huh.
on, yeah. And they said, no, heart's pretty good, but we don't trust this, because based on what's been explained about your symptoms.
Uh-huh.
So they said, we wanted to come back the next day in the morning, but don't eat anything the night before.
Hmm.
So I did that. I turned up the next day with always carry a laptop bag, I'm always ready for action. And I'd signed some documents, which I didn't even pay attention to. And they'd asked me, like, do you want to be anesthetized, or would you just like a local sedative? And I said, yeah, I don't want to be anesthetized. Got to go to work. I'm sort of late already. And so then I walked into this room, and there was like a team in there. There was like 7 or 8 people in the room. And I think you're always in trouble when there's one nurse who's come to hold your hand. And there was and so they put this like warm liquid in my arm, and all of a sudden there's the surgeon who is, and the nurse is saying, like, don't look, and I was looking. Obviously, when they say don't look, you're obviously going to look.
Yeah.
And they cut my wrist open.
That's like, isn't that like a basic thing? You say don't do this, and the person immediately does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they said, like, so I saw this like brown liquid going over my wrist, and then the surgeon got the scalpel out and just cut my wrist open, and I could
Wow.
see it. And it's like surreal because I couldn't feel it. And then they've had this like very long thin wire, and they put up, and basically it was an angiogram, which I found out later. And the process went on for about 30 minutes, 35. It was a bit uncomfortable, where we could feel it moving, but I could see my heart beating on the monitor.
Hmm.
And so they said that it's all done. And so I got up and I said, no, thanks, guys. Thanks very much. I know I was just off back to work. And the cardiologist who was standing in the room, and they was sort of overseeing everything, said, well, you're not going anywhere. I've just sent for a wheelchair. I booked you on the ward. You got like a 99% blockage.
Wow.
And you were so lucky, because you could have died at any moment. Any moment in the last year, you could have just gone. And
Wow.
it is in the aorta. Is the aorta?
Aorta. Uh-huh.
Aorta. And they basically explained that when you have a blockage in that artery, then the percentage chance of the heart recovering is diminished, compared to other
Right.
blockages. And I was put on a ward, And you know, then I had to explain to my wife and children the seriousness of the situation. You know, and my daughter's like saying, like, you know, Daddy, you're going to die. And like, honestly, you know, I was like saying, no, of course not, you know, but like, you know, as you do, you know,
You
as you
do,
do.
yeah. You say those things because you
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. And the reality of it was, I mean, you know, I wasn't allowed to move. Everything was on the wheelchair, you know,
Wow.
for those, because they just waited for me to settle down, because they put this sort of, there's a plastic clamp that they put instead of stitching your artery back up. And that applies, it's a pressure pad system. And they were waiting for me to recover so they could do the next procedure. And fortunately for me, I had 2 stents inserted. And they shipped me to a more specialist hospital to do that.
Huh.
Because there was like the leading professor of cardiology in London. And it was done. And, you know, at the end of that, I felt amazing, because the blood was flowing.
Yeah. And so when you would walk to the tube, then it just like there was nothing.
That is absolutely totally fine. And
Wow.
and you know, I was on meds for a little bit of while that helped the body not to reject the stents.
Mm.
And then, you know, you there's beta blockers and statins and all those things as well. But look, after about 6 months, I quickly came off the beta blockers and the statins.
Oh, well, that's good.
And yeah, and I ended up, you know, I replaced those with the gym.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and so I did a lot of work in the gym. I did my 2.5 hours a day on cardio.
Wow. Wow. And
Yeah,
so
it's
this
good.
was prior to the COVID thing?
Yeah, this is about like a year prior to the COVID,
I see. I
year
see.
and a half perhaps.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and it was all, my focus was, I guess I lost about, I don't know what it is. What is it, 14 kilograms? I don't know what that is in pounds. It's a fair.
It's quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
think
felt
2.2
great for
pounds
it.
is a kilo, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's the conversion. I'm not positive, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So considerable weight loss,
Yeah.
feeling better, dietary changes, of course.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I read up a lot about it. You know, I read about, you know, that the ability to process sugar is different for different bodies, different
Mm.
people, and then the byproduct of that plaque that builds up, you know, on the arteries. So yeah, but you know, live to tell the tale.
Yeah, well, we're so happy that you did. You've
Thank
been
you.
providing a lot of really good help to people that I know, and I myself did a consultation with you. I'm still working on my focusing on my avatar. So, what would you say your biggest challenge in business has been, and how did you overcome it?
No, that's a great question. So when I'd finished my studies with Stanford, and I decided that I really loved digital and I wanted to set up a digital shop, I decided I was going to do it bootstrap. So I did it with the 28 pounds and 50 pence, which is about, I think at the time was about $32. And the challenge of bootstrapping was, you know, a great and character building one.
Uh-huh.
I guess. But it was like
Because that's all
20,
you had at the time to invest.
yeah, I had 28 pounds and 50 pence. I mean, yeah, I had a little bit more than that, but I couldn't afford to put it into a business.
Right.
You know, I'd already lost one, took the hit on that, and then, you know, rebuilt myself in digital. I really couldn't afford to make the other investment.
Yeah.
But what it was actually 28 pounds 50 pence, which is about 32 whatever bucks, plus 2 woolly jumpers, because I was like working out to the internet cafes with the aircon was so cold there, because they don't really want you to stay too long.
That's right. Yeah, I know, it's amazing. And around here, well, you can't go and sit any longer in a cafe. And for a while, I had an office space myself for about 25 years, and then I was trying to get other people to come in and share the expense and stuff, and I couldn't, and so I had to give it up. But I used to like spend so much time there because I had it 24/7. And
Yeah.
then when I downsized my clinic to like 2 days a week, then I had to find a place to spend the other time I was just so used to. So I could go to libraries that had
Yeah.
internet access. I could go to coffee shops and just sit there for hours on end. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, that's all dried up. Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
but so you were doing it in England there when there were other famous authors like working on their Harry Potter books and stuff.
Well, absolutely. And I was living in Bloomsbury at the time.
Bloomsbury.
And obviously Bloomsbury Publishing for the Harry Potter. And so I was literally 2 streets away from Bloomsbury Publishing House.
Ah. And so do you think you were in the same coffee shop as?
It's possibly
At that time,
that there was some sort of connection or influence, but I never knew J.K. Rowling in any way,
right,
and
right.
never knew the publishing house.
Uh-huh.
But it's the same coffee. Maybe the coffee was the secret sauce.
So you start out on a shoestring budget,
Mhm.
and that was the digital part. And so you had a laptop that you carried around with you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I carried the laptop. Yeah, everything was out of the little laptop. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so then eventually you just built that up. Were you using like the publishing clients or contacts in that way, or?
Well, no, I just went for different client base, and what you have to do as you have to, first of all, you have to win the client, and then you have to over deliver.
Hmm.
And it's not good enough to deliver. Deliver is mediocrity, and you're soon forgotten
Yeah.
because they did the job. That's it. No, what you need. I felt that we needed was jaw-dropping delivery.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
literally, the impact is so different and so massive that they have no choice but to call you back.
Right. Right. And so
And
a lot of the referrals that you got is because of that, and is also partly in-house or also across corporate clients.
yes, so our policy has always been, because we're working with billion-dollar brands.
Yeah.
Our policy is we'll never take on a competing brand.
Right.
And that's just something part of our ethics of our principles of doing business. I'm not saying that it's bad that other people do that, because I think some agencies put up Chinese walls and all of this type of process that they have in place, but we just have never done that. So but what we did win a lot of business on the back on was referrals, even within companies themselves that owned multiple brands.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just great to have those referrals. It's just like an endorsement to saying that whatever you're doing is working.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so you've worked in the food industry.
Well, a lot of our brands, food brands,
Food
FMCG
brands.
brands,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
so fast-moving consumer goods. Not all of them, but many of them were food brands. And it's a niche that you have to have a love and an understanding for, of course.
Uh-huh.
And I love my food. What can I say?
That's great. And so if there was like a shoe brand or something, that would not be in conflict because it's a totally different
That's
arena.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you overcame that whole initial process of the having to start all over again and the shoestring budget and all. And so what would you say is the accomplishment that you are most proud of in business so far?
I would say, and that it's an easy one for me to say, and I just wanted to articulate it properly. For me, it's working with iconic brands, having the opportunity, because we're working with truly iconic brands, and in that moment in time for that project, we're the guardians of the brand.
Mm.
It's been passed on from generation to generation, from great marketers to other great marketers. And in that moment, it's just for that moment. And yeah, of course, it's the hot seat. It's like sitting on the fires of hell.
Wow.
because we're all under pressure because everybody wants to do the best for the brand, and obviously not least the brand leadership team who
Right.
are our who commissioned us. So, but it's just a great privilege, and also it's a great privilege to work with such great people.
Mm.
And yeah, I love that.
So in the marketing industry, are all the people like very good at persuasive communication?
I would say yes. I say, but there are so sometimes I guess everyone's different, and when we're creating messages, we have to try, and we have to sometimes brands will try a little bit too hard,
Huh.
and they'll overshoot the mark a little bit, and the message will bomb.
Huh.
Um,
Interesting.
but I wouldn't say that's bad. I wouldn't say the people who got involved in those campaigns were bad at their job. They just pushed a little bit too hard.
Hmm.
And I guess if you don't do that, then you could become a little bit bland in the end.
Huh. And so, but not only just in the branding, but in like working together. Like do people try to use like the marketing languaging with each other to convince each other if they're trying to sell their idea on something? Do they ever use that?
I don't think it's quite like that. I guess there's different types of people in every industry,
Uh-huh.
and we meet all different types of people. And some people love what they're doing, and some people perhaps they're looking for a change of industry. So
Uh-huh.
there's always going to be that. Uh, but then sometimes there are well documented errors.
Uh-huh.
Um, so there was a very famous sugar drinks manufacturer who produced an advert a year and a half ago. They did it in house, and it caused a bit of a storm.
Huh.
It was involved, they tried to leverage people are protesting against the police in the USA and on a
Uh-huh.
march about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it just fell flat. It really had the opposite effect.
Yeah.
And I guess that sometimes everybody says yes. So one person says yes, it's great, and then the other one says yeah, we agree, and then everyone agrees, but they haven't really gone out of their little circle of
Uh-huh.
So when in our industry, we're always trying to look at a different view, and
Hmm.
we're always trying to get a wider perspective. So we're not we don't miss the mark on things like that.
Oh, very
Uh,
interesting.
so
Huh.
yeah, it's just part of the process usually. Yeah.
So, what's the best strategy that you've learned, and what impact has it had on your business?
Yeah. As my agency got bigger, and there was one moment when we had one massive contract win, and then two more brands within the same company awarded us the similar contract but from their brand, all within the same week. So
Oh.
so it's just a ridiculous amount of work to deliver.
Mm.
And I was lucky enough to read a book by Gary Keller called The One Thing.
All
And
right, yeah, and Gary Keller's in real estate. I know that with Keller Williams. Yeah, we had this. This is a disclosure. No, we had a conversation like this on Monday. Today's a Friday, and I messed up. I didn't get the recordings done right, so I remember. So tell me again about the one thing, and the fact I confess then, and I do now, that in real estate I've been doing it almost 2 years, a little more than 2 years, and Keller Williams suggests that everyone read this book, and I have not read it yet. So you're way ahead of me.
it's a phenomenal book. It's probably since it was published, I read that book 4 times a year to keep me on track.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason that it's so powerful is because it does what it says on the tin, which is like focus on one thing. And even when you're in when you've got multiple projects and you're managing them and you're planning them out and you're implementing them on an hour by hour basis,
Hmm.
I've just applied Gary's technique which is to focus on that one thing. Now we can think of this in different levels. Like, so one thing on the strategic level, of course, is one thing. But even when we're managing our time on an hourly basis, we drill down and do the most essential thing first. It's been very helpful for me, and yeah.
So it's like also a time management strategy, and so do you actually like book out your time exactly? You're going to work at this amount and then that amount.
Yeah, it's more of a focus management strategy than a time management strategy.
Oh, all right.
You know, because if the one thing is so important, then it doesn't matter if that takes you, 4 hours in the day. Then it takes you 4 hours in the day. It's not about optimizing the time. It's really about the priority and getting the priorities right and then implementing them. And I think Gary actually says that, if the most important thing in your business, if you can do that for 4 hours a day, then your business is going to progress. Or anything you do in your life, the most important thing for you. And if you can, dedicate those 4 hours, and you're so right.
That's great. Thank you again for re-inspiring me to actually get the book and read it at least 5 times a year, 4 times a year.
4 times a year, yeah. Because I think actually I looked at it. Was it 2 days ago? It's $9. It's $9.
Oh, yeah. It's not the expense. It's just I had this stack of books, unread books. They're this high, that high, yeah. So what's the number one thing that you would give advice to anyone about their own marketing?
Yeah, so I think this is a great advice, for entrepreneurial level through to global brand level. I mean, because this principle applies to all of us, and it's really about understanding exactly who our customer is, who our target customer is, and we call that avatar. Which is our ideal target customer, and it's more about understanding, what are their pain points, that we can solve for them, and if we can focus on that's probably the best thing we could ever do in marketing, because once we understand our avatar, we're able to communicate with them better. We resonate when we can communicate, but also we can provide them exactly what they need, rather than trying to fit them into something that we've got. We adjust to suit the avatar.
All right. And so do you feel that also applies in interpersonal relationships or family relationships too, perhaps?
I think it's good to know who our spouse is. And sometimes it's harder. Sometimes it's much harder to do this on a personal basis.
Mm-hmm. To know exactly what the other person wants or needs or that kind of thing.
Yeah, and in marketing, we like to go and ask, and sometimes in our relationships we might not ask, and why not?
Yeah. So you think asking is a good thing to do, whether in marketing or relationships, just to ask to find out what the other person or people in general are looking for.
Because there's nothing to lose and everything to win.
Wow, that's so deep. That's deep. And so is that like one of the biggest secrets in digital marketing, or is there something else you would say would be it?
This one I think we'd probably brushed on this one earlier when we talked about time span. So what's really important is what's the first thing, first part of our communication. What's the first thing we say to people within those 4 seconds or 5 seconds of attention span that we've got? That's our hook. And my tip is that whenever we're working on anything to relate to our business, or we're going to communicate with other people, we should spend as much time on those first 4 seconds, that one line, than we do on the whole of the rest of the communication.
Wow.
Because if they don't get past the first 4 seconds, they're never going to look at the rest. They're never going to hear it or read it or experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And more to the point, if we don't get it right, they might even want them to immediately reject it.
Ah. So it's not only just ignoring or being lukewarm and not listening, it could be a total rejection.
That's right. That's right. Because we need to hit, we need to hit the bullseye with that hook. Because every marketing message is hook, story, offer.
All
But
right.
we don't even get to the other parts until people have been sold on the hook.
That's so good to keep in mind. And so this has been really, really illuminating. I'm sure the listening audience has learned a great deal. I certainly have. And so where can people go to find out more about you? I mean, I will also put it in the notes, but please tell the audience while they're listening.
Sure. Thanks for that. So yeah, I formed a Facebook group to help entrepreneurs, and that's to help entrepreneurs to generate 10, 50, 100 new leads for their business each and every month. It's a system, and we put together a group to support people on that. And then there's a program as well, and that's called so Facebook groups, and it's Digital Marketing Codex.
Codex, CODEX.
That's right. And then people can email me at growmybusinessandrew@gmail.com.
Growmybusinessandrew@gmail.com. Fantastic, fantastic. So anything else at the last moments of wisdom from Andrew that do you have
Yeah, I would say we're all in strange times. Every one of us has had our foundations rocked, and if we're in business, we've had customers that can't buy anymore, or are not in a position because that we're not physically even able to get a product to them, perhaps in some cases, or the product or the customers aren't allowed to come to us. So we're in a flux of we're in a change environment.
Yeah.
And my humble suggestion to people would be look at what you can do to be as flexible as you can be, to understand and then act on the needs of the customer, bearing in mind that the customer's needs may have changed. And if we can shift accordingly, then we'll survive in our businesses and even thrive.
Wow, that makes total sense. I know that in this area, there's a lot of like great restaurants. People like to go to restaurants and eat out and things like that, and they're struggling. So many of them are closing down, and the ones that are able to, they have the outside tables where people can sit and it's socially distancing and watching for the masks and things. And I saw on the telly the other night a sushi place in San Francisco that bought these geodesic domes covered with plastic. So there are these little bubbles. They have like 5 or 6. They want to get more, but it's outside on the sidewalk. And so you can enjoy it, but it cuts the wind because it can get very, very windy in San Francisco. And so they actually have these, it's like your own little bubble that you're in, but it was very clever, but they're showing they're adapting. And I don't know how they got on the television, how they got featured, but somehow they had some good marketing to be able to get featured. And I'm going, yeah, I could use some sushi right now. That sounds good. And in a dome, that's a unique experience.
It is, and I feel for the folks who've got the people who've got restaurants, because when we think about it, and this is just brilliant, innovation, brilliant thinking to come up with the domes. But the reality is, there is not enough space to accommodate the number of customers we had previously. That's in the restaurant business, we're working on a turnover on a spend per head basis and table turnover. So that's really calling for some great innovations in the restaurant business, and people are looking at, some restaurants are looking to think like, how can we reach our customers without them coming to our restaurant?
Yeah.
When a restaurant's locked out, how can we still sell to them? How can we
Exactly.
deliver to them? And one thing that is becoming very pertinent is that, when we've got a static location, we sometimes we take our customers for granted. We don't capture their email addresses. We
True.
don't. So we don't think about how can we talk to them digitally.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're in that business, perhaps it's a great time to rush out there and capture as many email addresses as we can, so that we can communicate with them and deliver to them, or provide them meal kits so they can still enjoy the experience of our
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're going to struggle.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
ever since I've been in business kind of on my own, which has been 40 years or so, when I first moved to this area in the Bay Area in Berkeley and stuff, and I'd be driving around and I'd look around and I'd go, there's an empty office space. There's this, that. And so I started to try to get a sense of the pulse of business, because, if they're filled up, then that means the economy's good or somebody's doing something right. And then when
Yeah.
they're closed and all boarded up, that means the economy is bad.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
restaurants in particular can have, their turnover is a little higher than most other businesses I've noticed, and other restaurants. To be in business as a restaurant, it really takes a lot of savvy, because I think the margins are so low. And so, I do every week after my clinic thing, I always go by and I always order to go, like my pad thai at two places. I love pad thai, and I always order it for no other reason than to just hopefully they will still be in business when this is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
We
so,
need that.
yeah, so thank you, that tip on being able to change with the times and to learn how to keep in contact with your customers when
Yeah.
things change is a very, very key component. So, Andrew, this has been fantastic speaking with you. I look forward to all of the listeners having an opportunity to hear your wisdom, and to also, I suggest everyone check out his Facebook group and contact him about what he can do to help you in your own business or in your corporation.
And Dr. J, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me on here, and thank you for your guidance. You have so much wisdom and helping me offline as well, and that's much appreciated. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, and I think our listening audience really got the cream of the crop today.
Great to hear, Dr. J.
Thanks.
If you're interested in finding out more about how you or your relatives can avoid dementia, buy the book, Outsmarting the Dementia Epidemic: 7 Key Memory Care Actions to Avoid Alzheimer's and Successfully Keep Your Brain Safe, Sharp, and Sexy into the Future, by going to outsmartingdementia.com. That's outsmartingdementia.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to get an appointment with Dr. Sordean, please call the Redwood Clinic at 510-849-1176. And for information, go to theredwoodclinic.com. Thank you.